Number one, what's required is the right commercial data foundation. What I mean by that, typically it includes account sales history, SKU level performance, product velocity, promotional history, supplier priorities, even down to historical velocity of the product of your competitor when you're able to buy that from a third party. Number two, once you have the commercial data foundation built, you need to now create your model, your machine learning model. This is to build your recommendation engine. So once you have it, this recommendation model can tell you exactly like this is what you upsell, this is what you push. And then the third level that you need to build is that once you have this data and recommendation model, you apply LLM on top of it. What does the LLM capability do? It translates the recommendation model output into human talk, the sales talk, right? So in the past, the recommendation will appear as dashboard. In the future with AI, it appears as words, as tactics. This is what you gotta say to be able to upsell.
Great. Hey, folks, thanks for joining in. I see you all joining in. We'll kickstart on time as we have lots to cover here. I'm excited to learn this, and I'm excited to have Glenn here, from Breakthru. He's the CIO of Breakthru Beverage, one of the leading beverage distributor of the US. I think pretty much in the world, I would say one of the leading distributors as well. So lots to learn here from Glenn. He is, been in the AI world for many years. So I'm looking forward to learning myself, Glenn, here as well. And the topic today is building an AI strategy playbook for the beverage industry. So as I said, we have a round of different kind of people, joining in from the large companies to the small and medium-sized producers as well. So, we'll keep this topic non-enterprise level a little bit, so that way it can relate to our small and medium-sized producers as well. So Glenn, without further ado, I would love to hear your story, your background. Glenn, over to you. Why don't you give us a little snapshot of your career, and especially when it relates to AI?
Thanks for having me, and I'm really excited about this conversation today. I'm the CIO of Breakthru Beverage Group. I've been in the industry for a little more than 10 years, distribution as well as at the supplier side of the business. I was with Constellation Brands for 5 years and close to 5 years with Mark Anthony Group before joining Breakthru. Obviously, the space of AI has been really heating up over the last 5 years, and I'm here to share what the journey has been for me, learning AI and deploying AI, many of those companies. And what I hope to do today is really bring it down to the level where we're talking about it from the beverage industry perspective. Like you mentioned, today that we have folks also from the tech sector, which following us. So that's a good thing because a lot of AI enablement is enabled by tech, and we also welcome you all here today. And said you have a lot of really good questions prepared for me, and I'm hoping to share what I can about AI here over the last hour.
Lovely, Glenn. So my first thing which I was just reading is what does to make sure, what does CIO mean, right? So in fact, the definition was very nice, like responsible for overall management, implementation, and usability of information and computer technologies within an organization. So it looks like AI is that now, right? It's how you pretty much, it's exactly what does the role mean. So, why don't you give us a little, one more sentence about your particular role in Breakthru? And then, for the first question you can tackle, which is what is AI strategy mean to you?
Yeah. So like most CIOs, my peers in the industry, we lead the technology function. But in this day and age, Sid, it's so well that technology is in everything that we do in business. It's in every business capability. So, at Breakthru, technologies is part of our transformation enablement. But at the same time, I'm positioning myself as that business change catalyst as well, especially in this age of AI where there's a lot of expectation of how it impacts different areas of the business, be it the back office or the front office, and the way we imagine our sales journey and decision making process. So very much, to me, the role of the CIO is a change catalyst. and an enabler of change, as well as capability builder. And AI is it's ripe for us to use to make that happen in many ways.
Perfect. Now, how would you define an AI strategy and what it means, for the leaders in the beverage companies?
Going back, 10, 20 years, where most of us, have heard the buzzword digital, right? Digital AI, digital strategy, digital that, digital transformation. Everyone seems to, over the last 10, 20 years, attach digital to everything that we do in terms of technology and enablement. To me, digital is really just simply a logical consequence of emerging technology and how you use technology in enabling the business and involving the business and changing the business. And it becomes digital is really a way of doing business. I really look at AI strategy the same way. At some point in the future, it's just a way of doing business. And when you ask about what is AI strategy, I start by asking three questions that is very relevant for each of us, both tech leaders and business leaders. Number one, where will AI create the most value for our business? Number two, what foundation must exist for us to be able to, as an organization, to scale AI? When I talk about foundation, I'm not talking about technology foundation, but people foundation, process foundation, governance foundation, everything that you need to be able to scale AI. And number three, how will our people, our associates, our employees work with AI? And if you answer these three questions and put it in the lens of using AI as an emerging technology, and even technology is already here, to be able to inform, how can you create value and create real business capability out of it? The answering of that question, putting plans to make it happen, is essentially your AI strategy.
Perfect, Glenn. The second question is sort of leading into that and breaking that down. So would you go over, what goes first and then what goes second? So you said those three main things, the three main pillars, right? So someone who's just starting, so, how would you put the sequence to that?
Just like my experience at Breakthru, there is no really perfect sequence. It always, like what consultant would say, it depends. And to me, it depends on the trigger. It depends on the journey that the business is on. It depends on key inflection points, like we do it in the beverage industry, especially in alcohol. We have a key inflection point of what's happening in our industry today. It depends on no missed opportunities, right? If you suddenly wake up and you come out with a really relevant idea and you want to start your AI journey within the company, or I'd like to believe that for those starting up a new business, you want to start your new business with AI first, your AI native to a certain regard. For Breakthru, in our journey, the trigger for us is the inflection point.
So what do you mean by that?
The inflection point is the intersection between what's happening in the industry, the challenges that we're having today, the headwind, and at the same time, what's the development of AI that's just so massive and so hyperscaled. So that inflection point is to redefine what are we going to do to be able to use AI in this frame that is our industry and us, our business. So it's looking into the use cases, looking at where you are with your foundation, and looking at how do you address AI education at large within the organization, and a lot of asynchronous activities that are happening, as long as that what the end in mind is solving for the right for the right problems, for the right opportunities you have for your business.
I think pretty much we all are facing one challenge for sure, which is the headwinds of overall less consumption of alcohol, right? So I'm sure that is for everyone right now. Like, it's just people are drinking less, right? That is one thing. And then you still want to grow, right? So that is the thing that you're trying to solve and grow the bottom line, right? So I think that is a universal use case, I would say. So let's take that as a core pillar of our discussion, and then goes to the next subject, which is sort of defining, the use cases as we were speaking in the last conversation, which is first comes the use case, as you said, what is the current state of the business? What do you want AI to do? And then designing the strategy around that. And then obviously, depending on the strategy, designing the data and all those things, right? Let's just talk Breakthru as an example. Like when you came in, or if you were to come in today, starting in Breakthru, and this is the problem, how would you define your top 5-6 use cases and then sort of design your strategy?
I wouldn't necessarily agree that the way to start is just really drumming up use cases. And
Okay.
let me give you a story of when I started with Breakthru. Beginning with my first week at Breakthru, I was having dinner with our executive leadership team, and obviously there is a lot of expectation already of what should we do with artificial intelligence. And my thought process at the time was I'd like to invite the team at least to level set in terms of education of what is AI and what's AI and what's not AI. So we ended up making a decision to do an AI summit for the leaders of Breakthru. And I remember opening that AI summit that we had in an Amazon distribution center in Tampa. And I said to the team, the goal today is not to drum up AI use cases. If we come out of the room more knowledgeable of what AI is, what's the art of the possible, that's a win. And to be honest with you, Sid, the main result of that AI summit was number one, we understood what AI is. We level set as an executive team. Number two, we understood what's the art of the possible, what's possible based on what we learned about AI and what other industries are using. And number three, probably the most important, is what's the burden of constraint? Because each and every one of us in different companies, we have a different starting point in terms of where we are in terms of technology, we're people, and in terms of talent. People ask me for advice. Where do you start? I would start with making sure that you address that AI literacy, because once you get there, when you ask the question of what can AI solve for us, then you're answering the question in the position of strength and the position of knowledge. And you have a two-part question here. Let me respond to that second question about supplier and distribution. I have a very unique vantage point. When I introduced myself, I came from supplier companies, and now I'm in distribution. People would think it's the same industry. Yeah, it's alcohol beverage, it's beverage. The challenges and opportunities are very similar. I'm still learning, being a year into distribution, a year in Breakthru. It's so different, the nature of the business. When you're building a brand, you're manufacturing the products, to when you're distributing, a host, the velocity and the scale of distribution versus the capability that you need to build and manufacture is so different. So the problem solving is different. For distribution, like Breakthru Beverage, we'd like to see AI help us with efficiencies. We'd like for AI to help us with profitability, how we sell, how we imagine our sales journey differently as supplier and manufacturer would approach it, which is in the supply chain and manufacturing process, the marketing and branding process, and eventually even commercial. So there are two different flavors to it, but you got to start your AI journey by understanding the industry and the company context. And that's where you're solving will make a lot of sense for your company.
Okay, so one of the question is, so your approach is reactive instead of proactive, solving the pain points you have now. And I'll repeat a couple of because it's all around that similar theme. That's one question. Second is, as per use cases, what I'm planning now is to execute in the areas like pre-cart demand signals and early consumption trends. How are organizations using AI to anticipate demand shifts earlier and improve forecast accuracy across the beverage value chain? The third one, what about futuristically speaking? What things do you see solving? What problems that will be approaching the industry that aren't happening right now, but are coming? So a little bit, I think the theme is around, reactive, proactive. How do we anticipate that and build AI processes for that sort of thing? But I leave it to you if you understood.
I wouldn't necessarily say reactive. I would say more in context of the journey of the industry and in the context of the journey of the company that you're in. So when I say there's no one size fits all AI strategy, I say that for the fact that the trigger might be different per company. If you are a startup company, your trigger is that you want to be AI native from the very beginning. But if you're industry like alcohol beverage and Breakthru, many of us that are responding to kind of just a structural change of our industry, there is something there that you need to solve for with a sense of urgency. So it's not about reactivity. The framework of the AI approaches are still the same. Is that how you start, where to start? It's different, and what problems that you're solving for. it's different.
Why is data such a critical foundation for successful AI?
Really good point. Thinking about this from the lens of our industry, beverage, where decisions are made, you know, we're talking about pricing decision, talking about inventory decision, logistics, sales execution that happens every day. Having reliable data becomes even more important. So if those are the set of decisions and processes that you're going to impact in your respective industry that relies heavily so much on data, because if you think about agentic AI, it's like you're building workflow that actually execute on some of this processes I just mentioned. When you execute, you rely on data to make sure that those decisions that are being executed are in with a really strong data foundation. So the very simple answer is that if the garbage in, garbage out. If you're training a model with the wrong data, you can never trust that data. So a lot of the governance is important. How you build your data platform is important. How you continually train your data model is important. Yes, given the fact that some organizations are able to approach some experimentation and some use cases, even with limited data maturity and data capabilities, there will be a point where if you don't take care of your data maturity and data foundation, that you will be limited to in scaling the operation of that data initiative that you're currently having today. The only way to scale is to have the right data foundation, and it's not just the right data foundation set. I would say the right overall technology foundation. It includes the compute, it includes the platform that you have, the data on top, and once you have all that figured out, then AI on top would be easier to execute.
Lovely. I would love to add here. I mean, I just recently also just completed a executive education on AI for last 2 weeks. I was there. I learned very good thing, and which is true, but it just came back on the face. One is, which I think now is, data will be the differentiator. The models are going to compete. Who holds the unique data and who has the highest context of your account? In our case, like let's say a retailer, a bar, or a restaurant, and whatever it is, right? So the data that you store, and the AI is just going to be so easy to run on that because it's just going to be so easy. It is how you store data. So we better start collecting and creating that unique moat, which, let's say, in your case, other competitive distributors may not have, which only Breakthru has, will be the differentiating factor of this whole game, I think. So that one thing was very clear to me, that this is all about data game. It's not the AI game. The long-term win is in the data.
Yep. And said, in the data that you own, first party as a company, your transactional data, your historical data, but at the same time, data that you buy, the third party data, which may include competitive set, right? How's your product is operating or selling in the different micro markets. When you marry that all together, including your planning data, that's where the power of AI can really help you, because the AI in itself is really predicting patterns and making decisions out of those multidimensional data that you alluded to. So if there is a missing link in the quality of some of those data, or some cases even missing set of data, like if you want to predict, be able to predict and have a very competitive model, the third party data is also an important element that you have to incorporate into that equation. That's a really good perspective there in terms of data being an asset, being an important element of AI in the future.
So, I mean, just one couple of examples here, so that way it's practical for people. Like things like, I mean, you can also throw in some examples. So let's go on what kind of data can be like a unique thing which can bring value to the business. So what I just quickly, simple thing came to my mind is, like most of us know that, normally this account buys on Tuesday or Monday from 11 to 12, let's say, this is the delivery time. So if you start storing those kind of intel, your drivers know exactly precisely that 4 o'clock, I got to go here. This 1 o'clock, I got to take order. Some basic things like this personally, this person likes espresso, this person likes Americano, blah, 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 right? So all that sort of intel, once you start collecting, I think that can be the moat to your competitor.
Absolutely, yeah, and those are key elements to personalized service as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you know the dimensions of that you just alluded to, you can personalize the service to specific segment of user, even down to a specific user. That's every user or customer is very important to you.
Let's go here. I mean, you are free to share us what you're doing at Breakthru a little bit, or you can just put your consultant hat and just imagine that, if this question was for a winery, brewery, distillery, or a medium-sized distributor, what kind of data you would advise that they start collecting at a basic level, and how would their data strategy look like?
I would even step back, Sid, and think about this as the overall foundation, the technology foundation, and not just data. And data is a very, very important element to this. I write this a lot. I share this a lot, so I can talk about this a lot broadly. At Breakthru, we call it the AI flywheel, or the three-layer cake. At the bottom of this kind of architecture is the platforms. The middle is data, and on top is AI. I'd like to believe that in the future, a lot of AI enablement will also come from the platform. So it's different depending on the company, especially bigger companies like Breakthru. When I talk about platform, I'm talking about the SAP of the world that we are implementing, where there will be AI to be harvested from those investment. I'm talking about the compute and platform capabilities that are coming from the AWSs of the world. AWS is not just the cloud compute, but at the same time the tool set, the toolbox that will allow you to operationalize data and build AI. So when you figure out the platform and a host of other things like HRIS and many other things, that's the base layer. You figure it out. The transactional elements of the data will come from the platform. The middle layer is the data layer. So this is where you build your enterprise data model, where you converge all your transactional data coming from different end-to-end processes that they enable, be it finance data, be it sales data, customer data, and supply chain data into that middle, and incorporate as well data that you buy from third party, the Nielsen's of the world and others. In Canada, there's richness of data from the provincial data that allows you micro market level competitive set. So when you contextualize that into one data layer, imagine the power and the capability that you can build on top with AI. Now, when we talk about AI on top, I'm talking about AI that comes from the platform, AI that comes from what you build, machine learning model, AI that you contextualize through LLMs, and of course, agentic AI when you want to finally operationalize that into workflows and execution. So yes, the data foundation, the middle layer of that cake is very important, but piecing this AI flywheel together, to me, is the virtuous cycle that can accelerate your scaling of AI in the future. So you're not only talking about just data, you're talking about the entire ecosystem. Imagine the power of that once you have that foundation figured out or built.
Could you walk us through 2 or 3 AI use cases at Breakthru and how each was identified, how AI was deployed, how performance was measured, and what transformation it created?
Unfortunately, here I'll be limited to sharing what we have shared already publicly, but I can tell you the process since I started last year, which the storytelling happened when we did the AI Summit last year, where really allowed us to level set our knowledge about AI and where we are in terms of our starting point. We call it the burden of constraint, right? When we finished the AI Summit, there was a lot of excitement everywhere in the organization and the function. And we were able to identify more than 30 use cases and document them, put value points, what is the impact of the business and those kind of things. We use two factors to be able to decide what to do first. One of the factors is business value, and the other one is the feasibility, the viability of the use case. There is no use when you pursue a use case that's not viable, meaning not viable at the moment because you're baking the cake, the platform, the data and AI, but viable now and it solves the problem now. So let me tell you the things that we've done since last year. So we obviously, like most of you guys, most of the companies, we've launched our Breakthru enterprise LLM. It's more of an experimentation. We built our LLM. We trained the LLM with a lot of breakthrough related information. So our associates go to it. They can ask questions about HR questions and policy questions, and even what you would otherwise see when you use OpenAI outside. That's one of the things that we experimented and we've launched. The other thing that we have done very specific to us, near and dear to us, because we are a selling organization. We just launched an AI sales coach agent. The limitation, because we're building our data model, that cake that we're building is enterprise data, but we have data about sales sheets. We have data about our products that we're selling. We have data historically of how we sell it. So we were able to build a sales coach that will allow us to train our salespeople, coach our salespeople in terms of tactics, and that's something that it's starting to be piloted and really impacting our sales organization. We are in the process of implementing S/4HANA at Breakthru. AI is helping us with code remediation, so helping us with code and building code and remediating codes that are pertinent to that upgrade from ECC to S4. We're building legal GPT. We are a highly regulated organization. We deal a lot of contracts, regulation per state. That's an aspect of also solve for here. So those are a few things that I can share. We're starting to look at other cross ecosystem type AI use case. The good thing is that when you have partners like Amazon AWS or also a partner with our supplier, now we're looking at use cases where it applies to our supplier, it applies to us, and it applies to our customer across vertical type of use cases. We're looking to develop an experiment as well.
Can I deep dive into just two examples here? It doesn't have to be your brands, let's say. So I like that supplier distributor scenario because it's win-win. And obviously in your case, it will be the big brand. So you both are trying to solve that, But let's say, I'm just picking a name here. Let's say there is Bacardi and there is, Breakthru, and now you're trying to solve something, which is to sell more of that brand, in your accounts and to grow depletions and whatnot, right? So that would be one goal. And the second thing, which I would love to go deeper, is your AI sales coach. So if you can tell me what kind of things that you did and how did you measure this, and how did you roll it out? A little bit more, if you can just walk into that. Just any one or two use cases?
Yeah, so the AI sales coach was primarily built with our sales team, our sales development and sales coaching team. They do a lot of trainings to our sales organization. We're a 10,000 group of associates, and a big portion of that are salespeople. And with the new hires that we're having and moving folks from one market to the other, training is also an important key element. So what we did was to train AI with sales sheets, sales tactics. You have an AI sales agent that you can actually talk to. You can select the type of products and brands that you want to go to, the market that you want to approach, and AI will ask you to what would you say to the account that you're visiting, and you will say it, and it will coach you based on the knowledge behind it. It's a combination of a model as well as an LLM that contextualize the words and understands the words that you're saying and gives you a coaching advice. In the future, which I've done this in the past as well, that you can incorporate into the sales coach transactional data, historical data elements of the product that you're trying to solve. So you can incorporate their, upselling, improving, and creating white space opportunities if you're selling a new brand, and or if you have a product that is had slowed down, you want to try to push it up. So those elements you can incorporate into that sales coach. We're in the beginning of this iteration, with the data elements progressing. That's going to be the next tranche of iteration that we're thinking as we move forward. All of this is to really support our sales team to be the best sales team in the industry, to be able to sell the right product to our distributor, and to be prepared and to be very contextual of the products as well as the transactional elements, and so we can sell more.
So I want to ask one more thing here. One can build everything, but then there is another challenge that always comes on the software side, which is having humans actually to use it, right? Like having your guys to use it again and again and again, and make it a habit. So did you just make it as a rule, or you left it, and how did you roll it out? And has that graph going up, or it was a spike and then again back to the normal, and they're just how is you're getting my point, right? Like how is the deployment in the real world? Because that's where I see a lot of challenge, where at the top the owner's excited, the management is excited, you roll it, and then it just dies a little bit.
You always approach this initiative not as a technology initiative. It's an initiative that is led by I call it converge, co-led with the business. So our sales team is actually the one rolling this out in partnership with us. So it's not the technology team that's doing this. It's the team that worked with us to develop this from our sales that are now in partnership with our market EVPs to pilot this. And obviously, at the beginning of this, there's a lot of learning and recalibrating AI as we move forward. So we do have an iterative process to make sure that we continually improve the model, so that by the time we go to more markets, that the model is much better. And in the future, like I said, we can incorporate newer capabilities with enterprise data incorporated into it, meaning sales data, historical data, and other relevant data that they need to bring in their conversations with their accounts.
From a distributor perspective, if a company wanted to help its sales team, I think maybe this is the same question we already answered. Let me read. From a distributor's perspective, if a company wanted to help its sales team prioritize the right accounts and identify upsell opportunities, how would you approach building an AI strategy around that? So maybe even double click on that same thing.
Yeah, maybe a double click, and I will answer this from the perspective of the different elements that you need to build to be able to actually do this, the one that you're asking me, because there are different, and what are the different tool set within the AI domain that you need to pull to be able to build something like this. Number one, what's required is the right commercial data foundation. What I mean by that, typically it includes account sales history, SKU level performance, product velocity, promotional history, supplier priorities, even down to historical velocity of the product of your competitor when you're able to buy that from a third party. Like I said, in Canada, there's a lot of provincial data. It even has this in a level of granularity that when you train AI, you can have a really good data set. So number one, that's the commercial data foundation. Number two, once you have the commercial data foundation built, you need to now create your model, your machine learning model. This is so that you're able to build your recommendation engine. If you're able to upsell opportunities, that means you're able to recommend. You're able to recommend a next best decision. So your recommendation agent are really algorithms that you build. For example, that was like what I mentioned. It's important to build your platform. AWS through SageMaker Bedrock allows you to build this recommendation model based on the different decision points that you wanna build. So once you have it, this recommendation model can tell you exactly like this is what you upsell, this is what you push. And then the third level that you need to build is that once you have this data and recommendation model, you apply LLM on top of it. What does the LLM capability do? It translates the recommendation model output into human talk, the sales talk, right? So in the past, the recommendation will appear as dashboard. The future with AI, it appears as words, as tactics. This is what you're gonna say, right? To be able to upsell. And lastly, what's very, very exciting is that you make it agentic, meaning plan your sales visit, learn from the outcomes and follow-ups, initiate downstream processes like order capture and order fulfillment. We're not there yet into that agentic because they're multi-layer. So by answering this question, you can see that the raw material elements that you're trying to piece together to be able to just do this in such a scale will require you a data foundation, will require you a machine learning model capability that you need to build, LLM to translate into human talk, and third, agentic to start creating workflows to make actions over those data that you have in place.
So I think one of things that I see here is, I mean, the game is a little easy for big distributors. You have the Nielsen, you have the point of sale, you have the depletions, you have the Kroger's data, let's say all that stuff. But for just a step down, they don't get access to this kind of things, right? So how do they build their intelligence, commercial data, as you say, for an account or things like that? Like it's just their 20 wines, for example, that account has. And that's not a good indicator of the whole intel of that account.
That's what I call about the burden of constraint. The burden of constraint could be your technical foundation. The other constraint could be your data availability of data, and the other constraint is the talent that's building this AI capabilities that you have for you. And I would say these AI capabilities are very much, I don't know the word plug and play, but available outside with the vendors that has really largely make it easier to access, many different platforms. Experiment. Load what data you have and start experimenting. What type of questions you can ask? The questions and decision recommendation might not be at the level of like the enterprises that has this other data capabilities or data availability. But you can start from a place where you're learning as an organization, I would say.
So let's take one for the supplier. For a supplier or a brand looking to expand distribution into new markets, how would you design an AI strategy to identify the right distributors, retailers on premise? So this is purely if someone's looking to enter, let's say, US, and they want to know if Illinois is better or Texas is better and whatnot, right? So how would you, for a new brand, how can they use AI for market entry?
I would use the same framework that I just mentioned. I would start by asking what existing data foundation that is competitive about the markets that you're trying to get to, that you have existing or you have access to, or you research. Put them all together and see if with the right amount of data, you have a potential of creating a model, either a machine learning model or a simple model, which quite frankly, Claude, OpenAI, and Anthropic gives you that possibility. And number two, how do you harvest outcomes of that data that you put together, either through the LLM or through agentic that I just talked about? And you start there. The most crappy way of doing this, to be honest with you, Sid, is just putting all your data inputs together and start conversing to the model based on what I said, and this is my targets. These are the markets that I'm interested. And on what you know about that particular market, what is your recommendation? It may not be perfect because of the inputs that you have and the input externally that it will gather, but you're starting, building a very simple model. If you're a small brand or supplier that's trying to use AI.
Just other question I want to ask you is maybe you have an answer because you said you understand your sales reps, right? You understand the business. So one of the problems that our suppliers and a lot of people are asking is, yes, I have all this intel, I have everything, I know where to go, I know who to ask, but the guy's just not interested in buying. They're not looking for new products, or they're just, this and that, right? So, you know which account, you know which country, you know which state, you're there, you got to meet to Alex, but that's it. You just don't get a single second to meet with that guy, and he's just not, or she's not interested. Any other creative ways that come to mind?
That's a very specific question, Sid. What AI does nowadays is give you, I've made some AI in the past where it allows you to dial up different level of persuasion.
I like
so
it. Tell
for example,
me more.
Yeah, for example, you have a commercial data set, you train the recommendation, and then the sales stop tactic is different when you're at the beginning of the month or at the end of the month or at the end of the quarter, we're trying to hit the target, right? So you dial up the persuasion level to almost red, and the tactics and the words it comes out really, really, really different. And so, yeah, it's very interesting because the language context is there, and those language contexts, as you continue to train AI and give feedback, whether it's helpful or not, or it's based on the personality of the salesperson too. You can use the level of persuasion. So, or in some cases, as we have seen, not just persuasion, but you're able to repeat the reach out just because you have an AI agent, an AI element that helps you do that, and at the end you win. Ultimately, you win, and you get the engagement that you want.
I think pretty much this answer is easy to do it once you have the data, which you already touched base. But in case if you want to mention anything, I'll just repeat this. How could AI help large distributors and retailers optimize maybe we can tap into the retailers here. How could AI help large retailers optimize their product portfolio across thousands of SKUs, identifying what to push, what to remove, and where the new opportunity exists? And 1 second, I think that can overlap to that other question that someone asked, which is the pre-cart analysis, predicting the trends. What do you see sort of the next category and so on?
Yeah. This is a very interesting question because, like I said, I always go back to the framework I said earlier. The other framework was about sales tactics and sales agent recommendation. This is exactly the same, but instead of commercial data foundation, you need the portfolio data, the historical performance of that portfolio as part of the data foundation. And then you build your machine learning and algorithm models to be able to answer the questions that you have here. What SKU to push, to remove, based on the data that you have. And then once you have that model built, machine learning model that you're starting to be very, very confident about. If you want to, then you build LLM on top to make it the human-centric outcome and or agentic, so that this creates then action downstream, either changing your product categories, changing what you're pushing for the particular season and market. Again, I go back to the same framework. If you're building something, regardless of the use case, we start with the data, you build the model, the algorithm and machine learning, you contextualize it using LLM, you operationalize it from a workflow perspective using agentic AI. Yeah.
How are organizations using AI to anticipate demand shifts earlier and improve forecast accuracy, right? So, for example, right now, most of the small guys are just using ChatGPT and writing like, hey, is Prosecco the growing category in US and blah, 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 right? Like basic play around with the $100 tools, let's say. So, and they get some level of information they're getting still. And then it's telling them that, okay, white wines are growing, maybe Portuguese wines are growing, red wines from Napa are declining, let's say. So the distributor can add -1 Napa and add 1 Portuguese. And then I'm just, how I would do it, I'm just saying. And then I would go to an account which has more reds. And I would say, hey, here's a trend, here's a report from this 20 different sources. See this? I'm suggesting you reduce 1 Napa and add 1 Portuguese white, and I have this one. Blah, so how would you sort of connect the dots? And similarly, same goes with the e-commerce. Let's say if Benny's website is every week adapting and reshuffling according to what's trending. If it's spring, if it's Easter, it's just reshuffling what to show.
Yeah. So if you have those data elements that you just mentioned, you can build your own model.
The problem is we don't know the accuracy of the data. That's the main thing right now.
Yeah. It's always the person orchestrator is expected to be the expert of the outcome and the data. So you're building the model. There's always calibration to the model. You'll know early that you need additional input to your model because your model outputting is not what you're expecting, right? For example, if you need additional historical data and promotional data to incorporate, even weather data sometimes changes outcomes of the model.
That's a good one.
So you continue to piece it all together until you come up with a model that you start to trust, that it becomes your instinct over time. And
I like that weather angle. Never thought of it. If it's a nice sunny day, beer sales are up, right? So
that's right.
True. What organizational capabilities or structures are required to move from strategy to real implementation? And let's take this as an example of a medium-sized company. What is the minimum level you would advise, let's say a 20 salespeople workforce, a $5 million company, of at least starting with if they want to start, like the minimum tools and capabilities?
Even big companies like Breakthru, we started with the mindset of just being scrappy. My advice would be don't wait until things are perfect. Dive right in. And the way you can do that is that find people, if you have a small team, find people that are passionate about AI, passionate about learning about AI and in a certain way tech savvy themselves, and put them into a center of practice, an AI practice. And hey, by the way, there are boutique firms outside that can augment or complement those small teams. So you can start building, right? And the good thing is that a lot of these AI capabilities are in a way democratized now or commoditized, that you can just really buy as you need them or as you use them, and start with the small elements and figure things out and put data and use LLMs to contextualize. I would start small, and that a small community of practice can evolve into bigger, where suddenly your leadership is involved. You have your head of IT, your finance and operations are now, which are seeing a grassroots outcome of a small community of practice of AI, now can lean into or provide more resourcing, and you can start scaling that small practice into much bigger. There's a lot of small companies, boutique companies that can help you start this kind of journey. If you are a small company outside, you don't have to kind of, bigger budgets. It's like just piece small things together and learn. And that's where you go and showcase wins early, and you can accelerate the vicious cycle of AI innovation.
Great. So I think this question is for the CIO. You're trying to push AI, and what kind of obstacles you're getting punched with and challenges you face, right? So just help us with 3 or 4 quick ones, and how did you sort of move forward and solve that?
Yeah, the biggest challenge, the burden of constraint for most of us is still our starting point in terms of the technical landscape, our technical debt. It's just so fast what's happening with AI, right? So you have to be very deliberate in building your roadmap, that you're baking that cake in a way that you can there's an anticipation of scale in the future. But at the same time, my advice to the CIO is really open yourself to building the AI community of practice to incorporate all areas of the business. We were always afraid about shadow IT. I actually embrace shadow IT. It's an extension. I think about the extension of my team. As long as you have the right governance, the right guardrail, you put them all together, and you can start experimenting with AI while you're building the bigger, broader roadmap. And number 3, it's always do that in co-leadership with your business teams. Co-lead, partnership, converge, so you can share the risk and rewards of whatever initiatives you put together. And you're not, fighting the battles, and you're with them from the very beginning of the initiative. Yeah.
How should organizations measure whether their AI strategy is delivering meaningful business results? And I know that this again can be depending on the problem you're trying to solve and depending on what to measure and what not, but just, again, we can go back in case to that 2 or 3 use cases we spoke about, which is the sales coach, let's say, or how would you normally, what are the 3 or 4 core things so that that you're progressing?
One thing is the business impact, which is the business KPIs, right? That's one set of KPIs that you want to, is sales revenue up or more visits. That's the business impact. Number 2 is that I always measure operational adoption and scaling as a KPI. Even if, I always have to tell people there is value and value harvest in just us learning as an organization on AI. It's an ROI in itself. Learning is an ROI in itself. And number 3, probably the biggest of the value measure is capability building. So if you're building a capability because of the AI that you built, it becomes a product in itself for your organization or a competitive advantage. That is the holy grail of the value that you're trying to harvest. So yeah, 1, specific to the business impact ROIs, be it financial, sales related. Number 2, the scaling KPIs and learning. And number 3, now if because of the maturity that you've arrived at, you can build capabilities as an organization or even products that are AI related.
Nice. So business value, ROI, second is operational adaptability, and third is capability. So I wanted to ask you about operational adaptability, right? Does that mean your team using it more and more, and that is one measure?
Yeah, that's one measure. Yep. When you're deploying it, how many people are starting to embrace it, right? Starting to give feedback, and become at some point become advocates of. That's really where scaling happens. The magic happens when suddenly.
But it all has to go down to the business growth, right? Like ROI. That would be. These 2 are still. I mean, end of the day, your CEO will ask you, what happened.
That's correct. Yeah.
Got it. So you have to connect that and sort of make a measurement system which ultimately goes to the ROI, right?
Yeah.
If a beverage company leadership team were beginning its AI journey today, what guiding principles should shape their AI strategy playbook?
in the context of your business, or your context of your industry. What do you want to be in the next 5 years? Because the next 5 years is the time horizon of this AI that will be really transformative to many of our industry and ecosystem. That's one principle. It's a business context is one principle. The other one, I advise them, it's a learning journey. Yep. Start with literacy at different levels of the organization, leadership, the people, and IT experimenting. And lastly, the principle that this ultimately will impact the people, the roles that they augment what they do. So how does it transform roles in the organization to make them better at what they do? And so that the people impact, the last one probably the hardest one to do and to change, but probably the most important.
Lovely. Glenn, thank you so much. Let's give the mic to Ankita, and then she can just read some questions.
Thank you so much, Sid. So thank you, Glenn. One question for you, Glenn, is would you recommend any very specific AI platform better trained for the beverage industry? So a lot of people want to ask that, are there any platform which highly curated for the drinks business?
No, I wouldn't say there is, Ankita, that is highly for the beverage business. I would start, especially for smaller enterprises, I would start with the commodity-based AI models that are available. Even as a person, I use them myself to experiment, even with my kids. Those are things that already works. And then when you have further investment, then you can look at the bigger enterprise offering of AWS, Azure, and those companies, and that have their own AI ecosystem in itself built on top of what they have.
So the second question would be, what is your advice of build versus buy when it comes to AI? So if we don't have like deep engineering or data science team or that can stitch solutions together, how can anybody go for approaching AI use cases?
Yeah, there's a lot of debate happening on build versus buy. It's always a pendulum swing. I'm saying that because the capability to build is at a different level, like we've never seen before. Vibe coding, I was just with Gartner a couple of weeks ago in Phoenix. The prediction is that by 2030, 30% of application will be custom built because of AI. It's 2% today. So I'm suspending my disbelief. I'm keeping my technology architecture very flexible from a principle-based perspective. I will continue to need those platforms like the SAPs of the world, because these are, you can never really build. I don't foresee them being built by AI in the future, but the smaller things, yeah, maybe in 3 to 5 years. So there's no direct answer, because the AI development on the space is really happening. You just be open and very flexible in your architecture principle over the next couple of years.
Just one question here, Ankita. I'm hearing one other story of the enterprise clients where you are very reluctant to put your data in that common models, right? So that data is getting stored at your local servers and your local things. I mean, it's just going to be hard to replace SAP, for example, what I'm trying to say, because it's just, you don't want the model to look into your SAP. Are you following my question? Like you have to build your own model eventually. That's what the journey. And some platforms give you that flexibility. So I think that is the problem some enterprise people are telling me.
Yeah, and also even those bigger platforms like Salesforce of the world, SAPs of the world, they are modularizing the data element of their platforms that can be more universal, and you can incorporate your enterprise data even if it's coming from a different platform. So it's still very fluid. Obviously, the tech wars is happening because of AI. It's happening today, but I'm just enjoying how this is shaping out, to be honest with you, and learning as I go. I'm a learner. This is probably the best time to be in this domain. It's just fast and furious, but there's so much to learn.
I'll take one last question, and maybe it's for both of you. So sales reps get product into on-premise accounts, but often have very limited influence over what servers actually recommend on the table, which directly affects the sales velocity. So now, as AI becomes operational in training execution, who ultimately own solving that issue? Distributors or beverage suppliers?
You want to take that, Sid?
Yeah.
So
I thought so. Yeah.
So I think the job of the distributor or the AI or whoever is to empower the server so they feel empowered and the sale goes through the server, for example, because that human touch is still going to be needed. I think, where the person has to deliver, say hello and whatnot. It can be a wine clerk, or it can be a sommelier, or it can be a bartender. But ultimately, I think what first layer, what I'm seeing is, let's empower this person, that the offering, the dialogue, the pitch that they're doing, that from the hello to this is it, I know that you like this, will be so flawless and solved that they are doing the job in their account, for example. So that's my take, Glenn.
Yeah, yeah. And, having been in the supplier side too and built something there, I see a world in the future where AI models between supplier and distributor are talking to each other, right? It's the multi-agentic world where the supplier has developed advanced development of the things that pertains to the thing that you're just trying to solve, and that on premise, and then the distributor as well. And both those models can talk to each other, and
Yeah.
how best to solve for that last mile sale that's happening on premise.
Just out of curiosity on the same question, I mean, Breakthru can build a game, or anyone can build some game which is on that app of wine menu or something, where you ask 5 questions and literally sommelier gets a trigger that this person likes this, because most of the time they say, you tell me what, and they ask those 5 questions, right? So has that simple thing been solved where literally that 5 questions which sommelier would ask a guest is taken?
I've seen that use cases in the past, in maybe in an app or an experimentation. Absolutely, yeah. That's something that I've seen already. Sid.
Okay, nice, cool. Anything else, Glenn? Any closing remarks for all of us here?
It's really good to have a lot of questions asked. And I'm just happy to be able to share what I have, my journey as a tech leader, a CIO Breakthru, as well as a very, very passionate advocate on artificial intelligence. My ask would be treat this as a learning journey. I do it myself, and I take my team along the ride, my leaders at Breakthru, but at the same time, even my family. I have twin boys and they're 14. I'm imagining the world that they're going to be when they go to college and start working. I'm happy that they're techies and they're into this field of AI as well. One of the definition of purpose that I like is, in the purpose path, is not what you do, it's who you bring to what you do that matters. So this learning journey, who I bring to what I do, is really the people that I interact with, like in this forum, my family, my kids who are, excited about AI as well, and my team at Breakthru, and just in the process of experimenting and learning on AI and what it can do to augment our business in the future. And hopefully you learned something today, and I'm happy to connect through LinkedIn if there are anything that you want to learn more.